I started playing drums when I was 11. I took lessons from a guy named Mark Nash, who was the drummer of a band called PFR. Joel Hansen was the lead singer in PFR, so I actually met Joel 20 years ago. Mark taught me for about 6 months, taught me how to play the basic 4/4 groove, taught me what a fill was, you know. And then PFR hit the road, and they were touring, and I didn't do any more lessons for like 7 years, like the rest of high school. And the whole time I had a voracious appetite for music, so I was listening to music all the time. I was playing music with the worship team on Sunday morning. I would get home from school, and I would just play my drums for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, like from the end of school until dinner. I'd just sit downstairs and play. I don't think I was practicing, because I don't think I was identifying a thing that was weak and hammering it home until it became easy. Things that were intimidating to me, I just avoided, right? So I don't really call that practice. I think I was just playing. But it was still forming in me a comfort with this instrument, you know? That's a really helpful thing, to just play, right? So a lot of times when my students ask me, I teach a lot of private lessons. When my students ask me, how much should I practice? I'm like, as much as you can, right? And don't just practice, play too. Like, just do it. Do you love it or not? If you don't love it, you should maybe consider doing something else. If you really love it, then do it. You know, I heard this quote from, I think it was Pavarotti, that vocalist. Somebody asked him, what's it like to have such an incredible gift musically? And he goes, the only gift I have is that I enjoy practicing. Right? Like, boom. That's the reality. There it is. Because practicing is how you get there. Practicing is how you get to the point that everyone thinks you have a gift. For real. So anyway, I played a lot growing up. And then in college, I met this dude named Dave King. I took a few lessons from a guy named J.T. Bates. And then I met this guy named Dave King, who's a really internationally acclaimed avant-garde jazz player. All right? And as much as you would think avant-garde jazz is a niche, he's the one that really got me thinking music and not drummer. He's the one that introduced that concept to me and just would not let me get away with being a drummer. He's like, you gotta be a musician. You know? He's not a believer, but it really framed that biblical perspective on not just being a resounding gong or whatever, right? I mean, it was his, I was studying jazz with him, avant-garde music, and really crazy. He was giving me, so he taught me to think like a musician, not a drummer, and he also taught me that practicing was essential and that things should be easy, that thing that I mentioned. He would give me these assignments that were just like, are you kidding, dude? Like, that's gonna take 3 hours every day between now and next week for me to get. You know, and he'd be like, that's why I gave it to you. What do you mean? Like, you gotta do that. Like, sometimes I would say, like, this is too hard, man. And he would say, it's not too hard. I just did it. Right? Like, I can do it. Why can't you do it? I'm like, well, like, what you mean is that it's too much work or more work than you want to put in. Right? I mean, I had an influence like that in my life at age 19. It was really, really valuable. And he said, Steve, if this is too hard for you, then you can't be a drummer. Drummers have to do this. Drummers have to do this, man. Or you just want to be a poser, or you want to be a drummer? Get this done, right? I mean, like that, he did it in a way that was, I'm summarizing him. He wasn't as much of a forceful jerk as that may make him sound. But he had an hour to get that across to me in a kind way, you know, in a supportive way, whatever. The point is, it was invaluable to have that. First of all, that period of my life where I had to spend 3 hours in the woodshed. The woodshed is not where you play. The woodshed is where you just identify the weak point and hammer away at it. It's not fun. You're just going, right? You're just doing that for 3 hours. And then you get done, and you can do the thing that you were working on, and there's the payoff, right? Like, I worked at Old Country Buffet when I was 15 years old, and it was awful, except then they gave me $100, like at the end of the week, or whatever. I got to pay, right? And I'm 15, and $100 when you're 15 is like $1,000 right now. You know what I mean? I was like, whoa! You know, and they're like, so you're going to come back and work again next week? I'm like, you're going to give me $100 again? Okay. Deal. I mean, I hate this, but I'll do it, right? So that's the way I feel about the woodshed, right? Nobody really likes the woodshed except Pavarotti, I guess. You're sitting there just hammering away, and then you get to the end of the road and you suddenly have this option in your playing. You have this vocabulary in your speaking that you didn't have before. You have this control, and you're like, whoa, that was worth it. That was worth it, right? So I had those years in college, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year, to be playing like 3 hours a day, working on this stuff. And it really, really empowered me, and it equipped me. And then he actually terminated the lessons. He's like, you don't need to come for lessons anymore. You know, and I'm like, but I'm not as good as you. He's like, yeah, but the difference is 10 years of experience, not like more lessons and more assignments. So you just got to get out and start playing, start learning. He also really hammered into me to be an active listener, not a passive listener, so that when I'm in an environment, I'm learning from the environment instead of just being in it. So all of those things are things that I try to teach my students. Not just, here's how you play this beat, but rather like, here's how you need to relate to this instrument. This should be a voice for you, not just a thing that you're constantly twisting to try to make it look the way you want it to look. You know, like, it doesn't matter how much I twist, just, I'm gonna leave it alone and go play video games. You know, it's like you just gotta turn this thing into, you know, like I said, I think the speech analogy is great. I want this instrument to be as effortless as it is for me to talk. So that, like just now, I kind of lose my train of thought. That happens sometimes. Or maybe I choose the wrong word sometimes. But at least my relationship to the instrument is one of control and ease, right? There's this quote that I remember sticking out of C.S. Lewis. Somebody on the back of his book, like a little blurb, was saying about him, C.S. Lewis makes you realize, regardless of what you think about God or religion, that thinking about God and religion is of the utmost importance. Right? That's like C.S. Lewis in his writing makes you realize that this facet of the world is an important thing. And that's what I want to do for my students. That's what Dave King did for me. Right? Like viewing this as a heavy sword and like all this kind of stuff, and not just something that you do for fun. It's fun. I mean, I don't want to take myself too seriously. But at the same time, it's just so important. I really respect its power, and I feel burdened by my affection for this instrument to use it rightly in the context of the church, you know, and I want to sit down at this instrument and take a deep breath of respect and just make sure that I am equipped to use it right.